Thousands of veterans miss out on benefits they're actually eligible for, and many don't even realize it. Have you ever wondered if you're leaving money or healthcare benefits on the table? One small mistake or missed update in your VA claim could cost you dearly or delay your benefits for months. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Veterans Briefing. Today, we're taking on a mission to really unpack the serious momentum that's happening right now in Washington.
Yeah, there's a lot moving right now.
There really is. Specifically, we're looking at the House Veterans Affairs Committee, down in the Subcommittee on Disability Assistance and Memorial Affairs. There are three critical bills moving forward right now that are designed to fundamentally reshape how benefits operate, how the VA handles disaster response, and how we manage memorial affairs.
Right, which are huge areas.
Exactly. So by the end of our discussion today, you're going to understand exactly how this legislation impacts your wallet, how the VA is, overhauling its natural disaster playbook, and honestly, the one crucial step every single veteran needs to take today regarding their own disability rating.
It's an incredibly active time for these policies. And honestly, if you just look at the congressional docket, it's easy for your eyes to just glaze over.
Oh, absolutely. The sheer volume of bill numbers and legalese is just overwhelming.
Right. But we're not going to do that to you today. What we're actually talking about is the tangible, on-the-ground impact on the daily lives of the veteran community. We're looking at the mechanics of your financial security, the reality of emergency safety nets, and something as fundamental as human dignity at the end of life.
Yeah, and before we even touch on what Congress is doing, before we get into the weeds of Washington, I think we need to start with what you can control right now, today.
I agree. That's the best place to start.
And that is the massive hidden cost of waiting to get your disability rating reviewed. Looking through the source material, they point out something that honestly should be a billboard outside every VFW. If you are not currently rated at 100%, you really should be taking advantage of a free review of your compensation situation.
I cannot emphasize that enough.
Yeah.
I really can't.
Yeah.
It's arguably the single most important piece of practical advice we can give.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I see this scenario play out almost weekly. Someone will come in, sometimes 2 or 3 decades after they separated from service, and they finally go through a comprehensive review.
Wow, decades later.
Decades. And they finally unlock the full spectrum of their benefits. And the reaction is, it's almost always grief mixed with relief. They'll say, man, I wish I had done this 20 years ago. Because the reality of the math is that they've been leaving life-changing resources on the table for years.
I have a theory about this, actually. Why do so many veterans wait years or decades to get this checked out? Is it just a lack of awareness, or I hear people toss around the phrase poking the bear?
Yes, that's a very real fear.
Like there's this pervasive anxieties that if you ask the VA to review your 20 or 40% rating, they're going to find some loophole and strip it away entirely.
Right, poking the bear. Yeah. But I also think part of it is identity, A lot of folks get out, they get their initial rating, and they say to themselves, hey, I'm functioning. Leave the rest of the funding for the men and women who really got messed up. It's a noble sentiment, but it fundamentally misunderstands how the system is funded, doesn't it?
It completely misunderstands the system, yes.
Yeah.
The VA budget it's not a single pie where taking your slice starves someone else. But you hit the nail on the head regarding the poke and the bear myth.
It's so common.
It really is. The claims process can feel adversarial when you first go through it, which breeds that lingering fear. But the truth is, a professional review costs you absolutely nothing up front.
Right.
An accredited representative isn't going to randomly trigger a reduction. They're going to look at your medical records and your service history to see if you have a valid ironclad case for an increase. Conditions worsen over time. Knees give out, hearing degrades, secondary conditions pop up that you'd never connect to your primary service-connected issue without a trained eye looking at it.
Let's talk about the financial mechanism of that, because the numbers are staggering. If an adjustment is made, say you go from 40 to 80%, you keep 100% of your back pay.
Exactly. 100%.
We aren't talking about getting an extra $50 next month. Depending on your effective date and how long you've been underrated, that retroactive pay can easily mean tens of thousands of dollars dropping into your account in a single direct deposit.
And we need to be very clear about what that money represents, right?
Yeah.
That retroactive compensation is for the time you are legitimately dealing with a worsening service-connected disability, but bearing the cost of it yourself.
It's not a handout.
No, not at all. It is earned. You already paid for it through your service and whatever physical or mental toll you took. Letting a bureaucratic myth like...
It really is. Yeah. So the bottom line for anyone listening, Stop self-rejecting. Get the review. Now that covers personal control. But your personal financial security is only as strong as the system protecting it. So let's look at how Washington handles the broader economic picture.
Right, moving from the personal to the systemic.
Exactly. I want to look at H.R. 8552, the Veterans Compensation Cost of Living Adjustment Act, better known as the COLA Act.
This is a massive piece of legislation. It's essentially designed to protect veteran purchasing power. H.R. 8552 authorizes automatic annual increases to disability compensation payments.
And it covers survivors too, right?
Yes. It also covers DIC dependency and indemnity compensation for surviving spouses and children. The entire intent is to make sure these payments mirror the COLA percentage that the Social Security Administration announces every year.
If you're finding these discussions helpful, please subscribe to Veterans Briefing so you never miss important updates and practical information for veterans and their families.
It really makes a huge difference when you stay informed on this stuff.
It does. Now, regarding that CLA match, when you first hear about it, the logical assumption is that it's all wired together. You know, inflation hits, Social Security adjusts, so VA compensation naturally adjusts too.
That would make sense, wouldn't it?
Right. But according to groups like the DAV, the Disabled American Veterans, that's an illusion. Veteran CLA is not statutorily guaranteed, which honestly blew my mind. It's almost like assuming your car will pass inspection without actually taking it to the mechanic. People assume CLA is automatic, but someone still has to formally stamp the paperwork every year.
Exactly. Why isn't it just permanently tied together by default? It's one of the best-kept, most frustrating secrets in veteran legislation.
It really is.
Most of the public, and frankly many veterans, operate under the assumption that the VA automatically matches the Social Security formula because it just makes sense. But the VA does not have the legal authority to do that on its own.
So they literally have to ask for permission every single year.
Every single year. Congress has to pass a brand new standalone bill annually just to give the VA the authority to process that exact same percentage increase.
Okay, I have to ask why. Because from the outside, that looks like legislative busy work. Why force everyone to go through this dance every 12 months?
It comes down to the mechanics of congressional budget scoring and oversight. When Congress creates a permanent automatic funding mechanism, what they call mandatory spending, the Congressional Budget Office has to score the cost of that over a 10-year window.
Ah, I see where this is going.
Right. And a 10-year projection of automatic COLA increases looks like a massive multi-billion-dollar mandatory outlay on paper. By doing it annually, it falls under discretionary action.
So it's an easier pill to swallow for the budget hawks.
Exactly. Plus, keeping it annual forces the VA committee to essentially reauthorize their relevance every year. They get to publicly pass a bill supporting veterans.
But the danger there is real, isn't it? You're turning basic financial survival into a political football. The DAV makes the point that CLA isn't a raise. Nobody is getting rich off a 3% adjustment.
No, absolutely not.
It's a necessary baseline correction just to curb how inflation is eroding your purchasing power. If eggs double in price and your check stays the same because Congress is locked in a budget dispute or a government shutdown, you're drowning.
Exactly. It creates a completely unnecessary vulnerability for the veteran. You're relying on a system that is notorious for gridlock to flawlessly execute a standalone bill every single year.
Which is terrifying.
It is. That's why the DAV and other organizations have to mobilize constantly.
Yeah.
The veteran community basically has to hold its breath every fall and hope the legislative calendar doesn't implode.
It's a perfect example of why you can't just set it and forget it when it comes to your benefits. But dealing with slow-moving inflation is one thing. What happens when a crisis isn't a slow burn but an acute disaster? Say a hurricane wipes out your neighborhood.
That changes the equation entirely.
It really does. And that leads us directly into the PROVIDE Act, H.R. 6588, the Priority Response for Veterans Impacted by Disasters and Emergencies Act.
The PROVIDE Act addresses a massive blind spot in the current system. When a major natural disaster hits a wildfire, a hurricane, severe flooding veterans are often displaced.
Right.
They lose their homes, their computers, their physical records. This bill legally directs the VA to take veterans living in a presidentially declared major disaster area and immediately expedite their disability claims.
Mechanically, what does that mean? Do they skip the line?
Essentially, yes. They get bumped to the existing priority processing queue. The VA already has a fast-track lane for specific extreme situations like terminal illness, advanced age, or severe financial hardship.
Okay, I've heard of that.
Right. So the Provide Act formally forces the VA to add disaster victims to that expedited lane. But the speed is only half the battle. The really revolutionary part of this bill is the mandate for flexible evidence requirements.
Let's talk about that flexible evidence requirement. Let's ground this in reality. Anyone who has dealt with the VA knows they are incredibly enthusiastic about their paperwork.
Very enthusiastic.
They want specific dates, specific forms, unbroken medical nexus letters. If a veteran's home just flooded in a hurricane, tracking down specific service records or medical documents is the last thing on their mind. How does this actually play out in a real-world crisis? How does the VA legally waive their own statutory evidence rules?
That is the exact friction point the bill targets. Under normal regulations, the burden of proof rests entirely on the veteran. The Provide Act shifts that posture during a crisis. It acknowledges that the paper trail might literally be reduced to ash.
Or washed away?
Exactly. Now, the bill mandates that the VA has to post the specific new guidelines within 60 days of enactment.
Wait, 60 days?
60 days. We don't have the granular rule book yet, but the intent is to force the VA to accept alternative proofs. Think sworn lay statements, buddy letters, or digitized secondary records, while actively waiving the strict 30 or 60-day deadlines usually required to submit evidence.
I look at that 60-day mandate to get the website and the rules up, and I've got to be honest, my first reaction is skepticism. The VA isn't exactly known for pivoting on a dime. 60 days in federal government time is basically light speed.
It is incredibly fast, and that's precisely why it's written into the law. Congress knows the VA bureaucracy moves slowly. By putting a statutory 60-day clock on it, they're removing the VA's ability to drag its feet for 2 years, drafting the perfect regulatory framework.
So they're forcing their hand.
Yes.
Yeah.
It forces a shift from a defensive posture of prove it to us to an active posture of how do we stabilize you today?
It recognizes that in a disaster, time is the one resource nobody has. So the Provide Act is about protecting those who are displaced. But that makes me think about those who are permanently displaced, the veterans who fall completely off the grid.
Yeah, that's a much heavier topic.
It is. Transitioning from protecting living veterans in crisis to maintaining dignity, respect, and duty to those who have passed away. I'm talking about H.R. 9006, the Locating Our Unclaimed Veterans Act.
It's a sobering reality, but we have a systemic failure occurring at the local level across the country. We have veterans who pass away, often estranged from their families or experiencing homelessness, and their remains go unclaimed at county morgues or funeral homes.
That's heartbreaking.
It is. And because local authorities have no idea the person is a veteran, they are often buried in unmarked, paupers' graves, completely stripped of the dignity and the military honors they earned.
The irony of that is incredibly dark. We have the most technologically advanced military in human history. We can track an active duty service member's deployment with satellite precision. But the second they take off the uniform and eventually pass away in a small town, they just vanish into a county filing cabinet. How does a local coroner even know to check if John Doe is veteran?
Usually they don't. The United States has over 2,000 local coroner and medical examiner jurisdictions, and many are severely underfunded. They don't have the time or resources to run down military records for every unclaimed person.
So how does H.R. 9006 actually address these systemic gaps?
It attempts to fix this by attacking the data silos. It directs the VA to build a centralized database specifically to track unclaimed remains. They'll collect identifying information like names, fingerprints, estimated age at death from local coroners, state governments, and funeral homes.
But again, if the county coroner isn't reaching out to the VA, how does the database get populated? The VA has to be proactive here, right?
Exactly, and that's where the data sharing agreements come in. The bill legally requires the VA to link up with the Social Security Administration, the FBI, and the Department of Defense.
Oh, wow. That's a massive integration.
It is. When a local coroner submits a fingerprint to the FBI's biometric database just trying to figure out who a John Doe is, this new system would theoretically allow that ping to cross-reference with DoD records automatically. It bridges the gap between a county morgue in Ohio and the Pentagon. It ensures that no veteran is forgotten simply due to a bureaucratic disconnect.
I notice in the text of the bill there's a sunset clause. It requires annual reports for 3 fiscal years, and then the program basically expires unless renewed. Why build this massive, complex data bridge just to sunset it in 3 years?
It's a standard mechanism for pilot programs in Washington. Before Congress commits permanent mandatory funding to a new IT infrastructure, And we all know government IT projects can become black holes for money. They want proof of concept. And the 3-year window forces the VA to prove the database actually works. How many veterans were positively identified? Are the FBI and DoD actually playing nice and sharing the data? If it works, Congress will authorize it permanently. If it's a disaster, it sunsets, and they try a different approach.
It's just wild to me that the resources to identify these men and women already exist. They just aren't legally allowed to talk to each other. Forcing that linkage is a huge step toward ensuring no one is left behind. But as we look at all 3 of these bills, the COLA adjustments, the disaster relief, and the database for unclaimed remains, it begs the question of how any of this actually crosses the finish line.
Right, because a bill is just a piece of paper until it's signed.
Exactly, through the collective power of advocacy. In this space, we're talking about the power of the veteran sphere.
I really like that term. It perfectly describes the community.
The sources define the veteran sphere not just as the person who wore the uniform, but this massive interconnected ecosystem. It's transitioning military members, veterans, disabled veterans, survivors, spouses, dependents, and caregivers. When you consolidate all those groups, you are looking at a formidable, highly motivated voting bloc.
It's one of the most powerful blocks in the country when it's mobilized. But potential energy doesn't pass laws. Kinetic energy does. The source material highlights advocacy tools, like Claim Raven, which is a legislative congressional letter-writing tool.
I've seen things like that.
Yeah, it removes the friction from civic engagement. It allows you to easily support or oppose bills. You plug in your zip code, select the bill, and it generates and sends customized correspondence to your specific representatives.
Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second. Let's look at the COLA bill, HR 8552. Like we talked about, it passes every single year. Nobody in Congress wants to be the politician caught on camera voting against an inflation adjustment for disabled veterans.
No, it's political suicide.
Exactly. So if a bill like the COLA increase is basically guaranteed to pass anyway, isn't writing a letter just shouting into the void, does it actually move the needle?
I hear that skepticism all the time, and it makes sense on the surface. But if you look at how a congressional office actually operates, you realize it's never about just one bill. Writing a letter for a guaranteed bill illuminates the district.
Illuminates the district? Break that down for me.
Every single call, email, and letter that hits a representative's office gets logged by a legislative aide. The chief of staff is looking at those dashboards daily. They track the zip codes and the issues.
Oh, I see.
Right. When they see a massive, organized influx of correspondence regarding a routine veteran bill, it sends a very clear signal. It tells congressional members that the veteran sphere in their specific district is highly engaged, they are watching the legislative calendar closely, and they vote. Many hands make light work.
So it's not actually about the COLA bill. It's a show of force for the next bill. You're putting them on notice.
Exactly. You're building political capital. If a representative knows the veteran community is heavily mobilized in scrutinizing the easy bills, they know they can't afford to ignore that community when the hard, controversial bills come up. Writing that letter proves you're paying attention.
That's an incredibly empowering way to look at it. You don't have to be a professional lobbyist walking the halls of Congress to have an impact. You just have to be a data point on a chief of staff's dashboard that says, "We are watching." Which brings us to the end of our discussion today. Let's quickly recap the top 3 takeaways we want you to walk away with.
Sounds good.
Number 1, CTOL increases are absolutely vital for maintaining your purchasing power, but they are not automatic. They require annual congressional action to mirror Social Security. Number 2, new legislation is pushing to streamline the VA to better handle disaster relief claims and create a vital data-sharing bridge to honor unclaimed veteran remains.
And number 3, collective advocacy from the veteran sphere keeps Congress accountable, even on bills that are expected to pass easily.
And as promised, here's the one practical action you can take right now. Do not wait. Take action today to request a free review of your disability compensation to ensure you aren't leaving life-changing back pay or benefits on the table.
Stop worrying about poking the bear. It costs you nothing to check.
Exactly. Now, we really want to hear from you on this. Have you ever gone back for a rating review after years of waiting? Or maybe you experienced the frustration of trying to deal with VA claims while your home was damaged in a natural disaster. Please share your experiences or any questions you have regarding these bills or the VA claims process in the comments section.
Your story might be exactly what another veteran needs to hear to take action themselves. It also just makes you wonder, if a simple data sharing agreement can finally bring our forgotten heroes home, what other invisible gaps in the system are just waiting for the right connection to be solved? Something to think about.
Absolutely. And remember, if you want to keep staying ahead of the curve on these issues, hit that subscribe button. Thank you for watching Veterans Briefing. Take care, stay informed, and we'll see you in the next episode.